when you type in blackjack in Google or wherever you're going online, you always come across, and you've mentioned him a few times already, Professor Ed Thorpe, Beat the Dealer. Doyle Brunson had Super System in poker. How important was that book to the game of blackjack? I guess it's the book, right?
Oh, it's the beginning. Without that, nothing else matters. I always equate it to, in school, everybody tried to ask what's the greatest scientific discovery of all time, and everybody says Einstein or this or that, but I always say Galileo, because the first time he put those two lenses together and looked up to the sky and saw moons orbiting other planets, it changed everything. It broke through the first barrier of, in this particular case, the church was not always right, and the earth was not the center of the universe. Similarly, to Beat the Dealer, it started everything. I mean, it got people thinking about what was going on, and rather than just taking conventional wisdom, it's saying, okay, what happens when we do this, or what happens when we do that? And then at that point, when you start asking questions, you can begin to understand things completely, and once you understand them, you can begin to manipulate them. Kenny Uston was an absolutely insanely bright player and a brilliant mathematician. He was vice president of the Pacific Stock Exchange like before he was 30, but he left it all behind. But a lot of people don't know the story behind Kenny Uston. And I get this directly from Al Francesco. He actually, over the long term, they were playing at a 2.5% advantage, but Ken Uston always broke even. He never made any money for that team because he was more of a showman than a player. He was never really paying attention too much. And Kenny Uston passed away tragically in France, not a dime to his name, and living at a daily rental place. So there's some demons that a lot of these great players have. But Al Francesco definitely was one of the bright ones, and always focused, always sharp. Invented team play in blackjack, which was the source of the way that the MIT blackjack teams made their money.
So the cup, it used to be called the Blackjack Cup, but it's got a new name, and it's named after one of the all-time greats.
Yes, it is. James Grosjean is hands down the smartest advantage player I've ever met. He's a brilliant guy, Harvard and University of Chicago trained in economics, and it wasn't until recently that he was barred from playing because in the past decade he's taken first or second. So everybody got together and basically it was a sure thing if you were able to bet on James, and after that, and he was just cleaning up left and right because he could buy 50% equity in his cell. So yeah, James Down is a brilliant guy, youngest member of the Blackjack Hall of Fame ever admitted, and he's a brilliant guy. Now, oddly enough, the reason he started gaming is that after graduating, in the 90s, he couldn't find a job. So he had been playing before, and he just started up again, and he noticed some things similar to the way that Professor Thorpe originally noticed some things at the casino. Went back and started crunching numbers, writing programs on the computer, and figured out a bunch of things. His book, called Beyond Counting, is probably the most in-depth and analytical book on advantage gaming ever written. Only 1,000 copies were ever printed, and these books, when one does come up for sale on eBay or something, they can bring anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000.
Wow.
Yes. And not only that, in order to originally purchase the book, James has to know you, and you have to be approved, which is very strange. And the original price is like $250. But I was fortunate enough that, James and I have communicated over the years, and I was able to get my hands on that book.
It's certainly like the great magician Di Vernon handing down his tricks to a protege kind of thing.
That is absolutely correct. Very few people actually understand the complexity of this, and there's particular stuff in there that I found very useful and very in-depth that I use as foundations or cornerstones of my own advantage play practices. And James can recognize people by the questions they ask, and that was a very high honor for me to have him say that I was one of the few people who actually understood this particular article in the book. So that was very good as well.